Having explored the rebellious interpretations of Durkheim and the shifting landscapes of secularism within left-wing thought, we now turn our attention to a more direct engagement with Durkheim's own foundational concepts. Specifically, how do his ideas about social cohesion, solidarity, resonate when faced with a seismic event like September 11th? This brings us to Edward Tiryakian's work, which uses this very framework to analyze that moment. So, why bother with the classics? Jeffrey Alexander made a strong case for their enduring importance in sociology. Think about it. Unlike natural sciences where you chase the latest data point, sociologists need to absorb these foundational texts almost as part of our training. They're not just dusty old books. They're like mental toolkits, giving us the lenses to see the big picture of social order. But here's the kicker. It's not a one-way street. The classics teach us, sure, but our own time, our own messy reality, can also teach us something new about those classics. It's this back and forth, this dialogue across time, that really sharpens our understanding. We use the theory to make sense of today, and the events of today force us to rethink the theory. It's a dynamic dialectical process. Let's zoom in on a classic everyone knows, Durkheim's Division of Labor in Society. This wasn't just some grad school fluke. It became a cornerstone text, constantly revisited and translated. You know the drill from theory classes. It's got that sharp critique of pure individualism, that grand narrative of society evolving from simple clans to complex, interdependent modernity held together by the division of labor. Durkheim even got clever using legal codes to track this shift. And crucially, while celebrating modernity's functional integration, he didn't shy away from its downsides like anomie and proposed solutions like revitalized professional groups. Plus, who could forget the famous dichotomy, mechanical versus organic solidarity? These are the usual suspects when explaining why this book still matters. Now, amidst all those themes, there's one pair that really sticks with people, according to Besnard and his colleagues, mechanical and organic solidarity. It's almost like the takeaway summary. So, Tiryakian's brilliant move here is to take this seemingly old-fashioned concept duo and apply it directly to something incredibly new and traumatic, the aftermath of September 11th. The core idea is that these aren't just museum pieces, they're living concepts that can help us understand contemporary social glue, both in America and globally. By showing how September 11th echoes Durkheim's concerns, we bring the classic text out of the archive and make it feel relevant, almost like a guide for navigating our own turbulent times. But let's be clear, Durkheim wasn't just tossing around solidarity casually. Even though he later moved beyond the specific mechanical-organic dichotomy, the theme of solidarity was absolutely central to his entire project. It wasn't just in division of labor. You see it everywhere. Think about suicide. What keeps people from drifting into despair? Social ties, solidarity, or elementary forms, religion, for Durkheim is fundamentally about forging a collective moral community, a church. At its heart, his message is powerful. Our connections to others, our sense of belonging, that's where morality itself springs from. It's the bedrock. So, if we combine Durkheim's ideas about organic solidarity from division of labor with his analysis of suicide, what kind of social bonds did he think were ideal for modern life? It's not just about family anymore. It's about building a rich web of relationships outside kinship, chosen freely, developed through shared activities. These ties should ideally be fulfilling, yes, but also involve obligations that we willingly accept. Think about your colleagues, your co-workers, maybe even that imagined community Benedict Anderson talks about. For Durkheim, these modern connections are crucial anchors, preventing individuals from feeling adrift, from falling into that nothingness of egoistic or anomic suicide. Of course, there's a flip side. Group pressure can become suffocating, turning supportive bonds into oppressive chains, leading to the extreme form of altruistic suicide, which Durkheim associated more with those tightly bound, pre-modern groups of mechanical solidarity. This focus on collective bonds carries right over into his later masterpiece, Elementary Forms of the Religious Life. Remember his definition? It's not just about beliefs or rituals being special. It's equally about the community, the church, that adheres to them. Religion for him is inherently collective. He even used the study of primitive totemism partly as a way to understand the cognitive and moral foundations of modern society. And look at the conclusion. He explicitly links it to the fervor of the French Revolution, dreaming of future moments of creative effervescence. His vision? A synthesis of science and religion, guided by sociology, essentially an updated Enlightenment project. And solidarity is key here. reason, morality, even achieving impersonal truths, none of it works without collective effort and shared commitment. As he puts it, collective thought is possible only through the coming together of individuals. Okay, so organic solidarity based on shared work and interests seems great for modern society. But was it enough? Durkheim, ever the moralist, felt uneasy. Could just having fair jobs and reducing inequality truly bind society morally? He looked for something deeper, something beyond mere occupational ties, even if those were enriched beyond just market concerns. He turned to religion, to the sacred, to rituals and beliefs that could unite people powerfully, especially when free from coercion. The big question then becomes, can these intense moments of collective effervescence, these bursts of shared energy and purpose that renew societal bonds, happen in the modern world? And if so, under what circumstances? Durkheim might have pointed to August 4, 1789, when the French Revolution abolished feudalism, as a potential example of such a moment. Now let's ground this in Durkheim's actual context. He wasn't just an armchair theorist, he was deeply engaged with the social issues of turn-of-century France. Solidarity wasn't just his buzzword, it was a major theme buzzing around the intellectual and political circles. Take Léon Bourgeois, a prominent politician and future Nobel laureate. He framed solidarity as essential social justice, necessary to prevent chaos and frustration, linking it directly to Republican values like fraternity. His words sound almost like a mission statement for sociology itself. This whole movement, solidarism, aimed to blend ethics and social science, pushing forward Enlightenment ideals. Durkheim was right in the thick of it, even if he didn't formally speak at the big colloquium on solidarity hosted by the École des Hautes Études Sociales. There was broad agreement on sociology's role, but also interesting debates, like Alphonse Darlou's caution against sociology completely dictating morality, emphasizing the individual's own moral agency. But beneath the surface glamour of La Belle Époque, things were far from harmonious. Sure, France was industrializing and getting richer, but that image is deceptive. There were deep divisions, widening gaps between rich and poor, simmering tensions ready to boil over. Think about the Dreyfus Affair, a national scandal that ripped France apart, exposing bitter conflicts between Catholics and Republicans, military and civilian authorities, fueling anti-clericalism. Then there was the real threat of anarchism, not just as philosophy, but as violent action, assassinations, terrorism. This fed into economic anxieties, financial scandals, worker unrest, the rise of syndicalism, and the Socialist Party led by Jean Jaurès, someone Durkheim knew personally. Add to that rising tensions with Germany. France was a powder keg. And then in July 1914 the fuse was lit. The assassination of socialist leader Jean Jaurès, followed almost immediately by Germany declaring war on France. What happened next was extraordinary. An unprecedented wave of national solidarity swept the country. At Jaurès's funeral, Republicans and socialists stood shoulder to shoulder. Leaders who had just denounced war now rallied behind the flag. As the president declared, there were no longer foes in France, only Frenchmen ready to make sacrifices for the holiest of causes. It was a collective effervescence on a massive scale, politicians embracing old rivals, pacifists joining the call to arms. Even priests, despite their opposition to the regime, largely rallied. This was the Union Sacrée, a sacred union forged in the crucible of external threat. Durkheim, like everyone else, experienced this intense national feeling firsthand, even contributing to the war effort by writing articles trying to sway American opinion. Fast forward nearly a century. Tiryakian draws a striking parallel between the U.S. situation right before September 11, 2001, and France before World War I. Think about it. The U.S. was deeply polarized politically, reeling from a controversial election, dealing with scandals, facing persistent racial divides, and experiencing an economic slowdown. Sound familiar? Then came the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Obviously, the immediate impact was devastating, physically and psychologically. But, crucially for this argument, something remarkable happened again, a massive surge in national solidarity. Just like in France in 1914, the U.S. found itself united in a way it hadn't been for a long time. President Bush, initially a minority president facing challenges, suddenly transformed into a unifying wartime leader, enjoying record levels of public support. Unity became the dominant refrain in official rhetoric. Listen to these quotes. All Americans, unite. Warm courage of national unity, Republicans and Democrats singing together. It echoes Poincaré's appeals in 1914. And just like Poincaré invoked civilization as a universal value, Bush started framing the conflict in terms of civilization versus barbarism, appealing to a global audience against the attackers. In this context, Bush himself became a powerful symbol, embodying this newfound national solidarity and the collective desire for resistance. This unity was amplified by symbols, firefighters and police becoming heroes, flags flying everywhere, the nation singing together. But this wasn't just an American phenomenon. Because of television, as Todd Gitlin noted, the whole world was watching. The attacks resonated globally, creating a shared sense of horror and sympathy. And remarkably, memorial services were held worldwide, from Paris to Seoul, from Cairo mosques to Buckingham Palace. President Bush acknowledged this global outpouring of support, mentioning these moments of shared remembrance. Yet at the same time he issued that stark ultimatum: every nation has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with terrorists. This highlights the dual nature of this global solidarity, a shared shock, but also a demand for alignment in the impending conflict. Now, let's circle back to Durkheim's concept of mechanical solidarity. Remember how he described the strong collective reaction to crime, because it offends sentiments shared by everyone? Well, Tiryakian argues that this wasn't just a feature of pre-modern societies. It was definitely reactivated in the US after September 11th. The attack was perceived as an attack on all Americans, triggering a renewed emphasis on shared identity symbols like the flag, the Pledge of Allegiance. Interestingly, this often took place within a religious framework, with presidential speeches heavy on religious language, even invoking a crusade. But, as Durkheim himself noted, the dark side of mechanical solidarity is exclusion. This intense focus on what we have in common can easily lead to vilifying those deemed outsiders. Given existing tensions with Islamic nations and narratives of jihad, the risk of scapegoating Muslim Americans was very real. We saw government actions that were contradictory, public gestures of inclusion, alongside reports of surveillance targeting Muslim Arabs. It's that classic tension Durkheim identified, the potential for unity, but also for division. Beyond the intense national mechanical solidarity, Tiryakian suggests another dimension: enhanced organic solidarity, but on a global scale, operating at the micro level. He shares a personal anecdote. Shortly after September 11th, he received spontaneous emails of condolence and solidarity from sociologists all over the world: France, Japan, China, Macedonia. Colleagues in other fields reported similar experiences. People reaching out across borders, connecting through shared professional identity. Tiryakian muses that Durkheim, living through the global shock of 1914, might have received similar telegrams from American colleagues. He'd likely have seen these modern digital messages as fascinating new social facts, a clear manifestation of organic solidarity extended by globalization, worthy of sociological investigation. So, what's the takeaway? Tiryakian's exercise shows that Durkheim's concepts of mechanical and organic solidarity aren't just historical curiosities. They're dynamic tools for analyzing the complexities of modern society, including moments of profound crisis and transformation like September 11th. It reinforces that idea of a dialogue between theory and reality, where each illuminates the other. By seeing how events like 9/11 echo Durkheim's concerns, we make these classic texts less like dusty relics and more like living companions in our ongoing effort to understand the social world. That's the power of revisiting the classics.